Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to do a little Christmas themed video today where I'm talking about Christmas themed palettes, but it's gonna have a twist. And that twist is that the theme of each palette is some sort of Christmas element that you might think of when you think of Christmas time. It's not necessarily that the palette itself is a Christmas theme. So if you want to see what I'm talking about, don't go anywhere. And if you've never been here before, hey, my name's Rachel. I'm a homeschooling stay-at-home mom. I really love to play with colorful eyeshadow. I think it's so much fun. And I upload several videos every week that's all eyeshadow related content. If you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe before you go. Now let's get rolling with this one. A little point of note, I did not film today's eye look. I was just kind of playing around with some palettes, and I'm sorry. Usually I do film an eye look before I do a second chatty sort of video, but today's eye look wasn't filmed. Anyway, let's get going. I want to talk about some elements of Christmas time and what palettes make me think of those elements. So I want to start with lights, because when I think of Christmas, I think of lights, you know, lights on the tree and lights on people's houses and lights in shopping centers and just lights everywhere, even in home decor and like yard decor, you know? So I looked through my collection, and one of the palettes that most makes me think of lights is the Queen Bee palette from Colored Rain. The reason I chose this one, because I have lots of pretty palettes, is because yes, this is harvest toned and everything, but if I'm just talking about the shimmers make me think of lights because they are so stunning. They're so bright and impactful. I think I'll swatch a little bit for you guys. I don't want to swatch a ton because I don't want to become a mess. I need to go run some errands. But these shimmers are just so pretty and bright and impactful. Hopefully you'll be able to see that right now. My lighting, of course, funnily enough, is not amazing, but it's about as good as it's going to get because I'm standing in front of a window in daylight. But anyway, the shimmers in this palette are so gorgeous, and I think of them and I just associate them with like a bright light. They're so pretty. The next thing I think of when I hear the word Christmas is snow. Now, currently, unfortunately, where we live, we get basically no snow, which to me is super depressing because I grew up going to Canada for Christmas, and we would have multiple feet of snow. We would go skiing and snowmobiling. We would go snowmobiling on the frozen lakes. I have such happy snow memories. And there's a palette that comes to mind whenever I think of winter or cold or snow, and that is the Blueberry Muffin palette from BH Cosmetics. This palette, I don't know if it's partially the internal packaging with this light silvery toned iridescent thing, or if it's the colors themselves, but I think it's possibly a little of both, but really the colors, because these are such cool tones, and all of the silvery blues and even some of these shimmers that are very cool toned, light toned shimmers, they remind me of snow and the way that the light sparkles on it and hits it in just such interesting ways. All the little facets and fractals and ice and chili, and that is what this palette constantly makes me think of. I don't associate this with brunch and muffins. I look at this palette and I think snow. Here's a palette that probably everyone is expecting to see in everyone's Christmas video. This is the Merry Christmas palette from Oden. Of course, it is their newest release, already out of stock and discontinued. I pulled this palette to represent the Christmas tree, because this palette has this shade right here, which is actually called Christmas Tree, but it's a lovely deep evergreen matte. It also has some lighter tones because a tree is not just one color, you know, it's different shades of green. So we've got more of a sage green, a yellowy mustardy sort of green, a minty green, and then even this shimmer right here is almost teal, but it has a little bit more green than blue. So I think that these shades represent the Christmas tree so nicely, but then also we've got ornaments and lights on our tree, and the rest of this palette to me speaks all those other colors, you know, red and pink and orange and gold and black and whites. And I just think that this palette, do you remember when Nomad launched their Monteverde Cloud Forest palette? When you heard Nomad talking about the release, what they said was, look at it this way. Imagine a forest, this leafy green canopy. Then you've got all these multicolored bright animals sort of peeking through the leaves. And if you look at the way they laid out the palette, there are a lot of different greens and different tones, and then these bright pops of neon colors peeking through the leaves. So when you look at it in this artistic sort of perspective, it really changes the way you see the palette. And I feel that way about the Merry Christmas palette, that we've got the tree represented, and then we've got all the ornaments and the decorations and the bauble and all the pretty colorful things that we put on our trees. And of course, When we're talking about the things that we put on our tree to make it even prettier, we have to talk about tinsel. You might not use tinsel. I grew up using tinsel. I no longer do. Tinsel is so old school at this point. Does anyone use tinsel? We see it in all the old movies, you know, Kevin McAllister hanging tinsel. But tinsel is the representative sparkle. Now, of course, we have lights and we have glitter and we have all kinds of other things now. But I think of Christmas and I think of tinsel and I think of tinsel related to eyeshadow palettes, and I go for what is the most sparkly eyeshadow I probably have in my collection, and that would be Plain Jane from Adept Cosmetics. This was gifted to me by a super generous subscriber, and this palette is all multi-chrome shimmers and it's beautiful. So this is like my high shine, super sparkly palette. I actually used this one today. I used this shimmer right here for this purpley outer lid area. I used this one as an inner corner highlight. Anyway, beautiful palette, beautiful colors, very kind of a soft wash of sparkle and glitter. It's not very high shine the way that, for example, Glam Light shimmers are. This is a different formula and it's so very sparkly. Tinsel. Right in front of me is my fireplace, and when I look at my fireplace, up on the mantle, I see a nativity scene. Again, nativity scenes, Christmas time, they're all associated together, and for a nativity scene, I pulled out the At First Sight palette between Raw Beauty Kristi and ColourPop, because when I think of a nativity, generally I'm thinking of neutral and muted colors. Sometimes they're nicely pigmented colors, you know, royal purples and rich blues and deep foresty greens, but they're all more neutral. They're often made with wood or some sort of resin that's a bit more downplayed. They're not usually bright, vibrant kinds of colors. So I thought that this was a perfect palette to choose for a nativity scene because that's what we get. We've got the neutral, grounded, warm, muted sorts of colors, and we even have two shimmers in here because I've seen so many nativity scenes that might have a robe that has some gold edging, and here we go, here's our gold edging, or maybe a crown on one of the wise men, or the latch on a gift that one of the wise men is bringing to the Christ child, and we've got silver and gold, so we've got some metallic represented in a sea of neutral grounded tones. This one, I was like, okay, what other Christmas concepts or elements can I think of? Nativity scenes. At First Sight. Now everyone associates Christmas with gifts and presents, and for presents under the tree, I've chosen the Through My Eyes palette between ColourPop and ILUVSARAHI. This palette I think represents gifts pretty well. I had to think about it for a second, but when I thought about it, I got to I think that makes sense, because a lot of gift wrapping is either neutral or really colorful, and the colors that are generally chosen are more red, gold, green kinds of tones. Sometimes there's yellow, and we have all of that in here. We've got the neutral side of things. We've got more reddy, goldish sorts of tones, some yellows. We've got some more metallic shades. We've got the greens over here. Then we also have some other complementary tones like these purples and mauves. And we also have a really light, like creamy ivory sort of white. And we've got sort of a silvery shade here. And I think that whether your gift wrapping style is the brighter, more colorful papers, or those really metallic papers, or a more natural Pinterest sort of style with twine and craft paper, I think that this palette kind of covers all of those bases in a way that works together cohesively and is really quite lovely. Now, the children in our lives might think about Christmas and associate that word with gingerbread houses. So for gingerbread, I've pulled out the Naughty palette from BH Cosmetics. This was also gifted by a subscriber. I will say I have not actually used this palette yet. I do plan on using it. I know it is so well reviewed, even though it's kind of too big for my collection, my personal preferences, and it has two pressed glitters. I'm excited to play with it because of the really good reviews that I've heard of it. I look at it and I associate this with gingerbread, and then gingerbread houses and the kits and stuff, they often come with candies. So gumdrops and M&Ms and little sprinkles and sparkles. And I think that this palette kind of grabs all of those as well. We've got the brown neutrals for the gingerbread house itself, and then we've got the pops of color in all the different candies and the frosting. You know, we've got frosting. I don't know, this video is so much fun. I think that this palette really accurately represents gingerbread houses and the sorts of colors that you might find in that little project. And there you go, guys. Those are, I think it was 7 palettes that to me represent different elements of Christmas and the Christmas season. This video was actually a lot of fun to make. You can see that I'm feeling excited about it because I thought it was sort of a fun random theme that popped into my brain. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to like and subscribe before you go, and you can expect to see lots more videos this month, many of which are like year-end closeout videos, favorite palettes, rankings, declutters, things like that. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great day. Bye.